What's up guys, welcome to Daily Refinement. Today's video I'm going to give you 10 reasons why you might be a fool instead of a reseller. So please smash the like button, consider subscribing. We'll see you guys inside. Number one and my favorite one. Let me know in the comment section below what your favorite one is, but number one is my favorite, which is you buy it to resell, but you actually just want it. So you end up buying an item that you intend on reselling, but you really just want to get it for yourself. And a lot of collectors do this. So a lot of people who buy items, you can especially tell this when the reseller has their items up for display, because are you storing the item, getting it ready for the customer, or do you just like looking at it? Nothing wrong with this, but you might be a fool if you're buying an item for resell, but you end up just collecting it. Number two is buying items just to hit a listing goal. So on this channel, we talk about hitting a certain listing goal every single day. It might be 5 listings a day, 10 listings a day. So what ends up happening is people will buy 10 CDs or DVDs, things that are easy to list, with not really any regard to whether or not they sell. They just want to hit this arbitrary number of 10 listings a day. Well, I'll tell you that those don't count. You have to list items that people actually want at a price that they're willing to pay. Otherwise, you're a fool. Because in this situation, you're just buying for the sake of buying and to reach this listing goal, but you're not building a resale business. Number three, you like the idea of reselling for a profit, but your main goal is actually just buying. For a lot of people, buying something is just a reaction to being bored, or it's a form of retail therapy because they're stressed out. So if that's your situation, when you end up buying the item, you've already reaped the reward. And if that's your scenario, then you're going to associate listing, processing, shipping with pain actually. So these are the people who say, I can't reach my listing goal because it's so difficult, because it's so painful. I really don't like listing. In that case, you might want to look at your emotions, because you might just be buying as a form of retail therapy, and that's not the same thing as reselling. Number four is you might be a fool if you're purchasing at a price that's way too high to even make a profit. Sometimes people are so desperate to buy a good brand that they end up overpaying for the item, and this is pretty common, especially if it's a really great brand. So somebody might pay $300 for a Gucci purse, but after all fees, it's not a profitable item because maybe the Gucci purse only sells for $379. So buying for $300 and selling for $380 after taxes, after shipping, after the platform fees, you end up not making a profit. So you might be a fool if you're paying too much for your items. You might be a fool if you don't have the right setup to list an item. So let's say you find a beautiful Laurel piano suit that's worth $5,000, but you don't have the right photo setup, but you're optimistic because you see the solds on eBay for $2,000 to $3,000 and it's at a garage sale for $10. But if you don't have the right setup, like my friend, One Luxotic Thread, his store is set up to sell high-end menswear. He has the right mannequin, he has the right camera, he has the right settings on his Photoshop to get the photo and the experience proper for that type of buyer. So a lot of people are too optimistic for what they can list. And if you're not set up properly, it's going to end up just sitting in your storage, not being listed. You might be a fool if you purchase items that are too difficult to photograph. One thing that I think is very specific on this is jewelry or glassware or furniture. These types of items require certain photography to make it look right to the customer. So if you're doing furniture and you're actually set up at a storage unit, that can greatly lower the price of your items because that looks a little bit cheap, or like you're just trying to get rid of an item. People who sell high-end furniture usually have nice sets where they can put the furniture in to make it look like it's worth a lot more. It's the same thing with jewelry sellers. The photography is very important. If you have a dirty looking a black felt setup, it's gonna look very different than someone that has a multi-texture background. I think that people who are really good at selling jewelry often have two-tone photography, so you can see the jewelry against two different kinds of backgrounds. So if you're trying to get the most money for an item, but your setup is not up to par for that particular type of item, you might be a fool, because hoping that you get a certain amount for an item definitely requires a certain type of presentation. You might be a fool if you purchase an item to resell when you're unsure of its actual condition. If it hasn't been graded, it hasn't been tested, you don't know if it turns on, you don't know if it works, you don't understand the flaws, you can't see the entire item when you're buying it at an auction, you might be a fool because you're not going to be able to correctly assess the item condition, and in turn, you won't be able to price the item correctly. So you may buy an item that looks like a $5,000 item, sell it, get the money, and end up having to return the item because it's not a specific amount. So as an example, I bought a Wolf range on Craigslist for $0. It was free, but I didn't understand what was wrong with it. In the listing, it said burner number 1 and burner number 3 don't necessarily turn on, so you need to use a table lighter to turn those on. Now that's crazy. I have no way of actually testing it. This is an in-counter unit, so I'd have to figure out a different type of plug or outlet just to test this type of range. So I have basically no way of testing this item, no way of understanding if it's going to be good or not. And just because it's a wolf range worth $5,500 doesn't mean it's a worthy pickup, even for free. So what I ended up doing is passing the buck. I posted it on Craigslist for $100. Somebody messaged me and I said, this is as is. I don't know what's wrong with it. You have to test it. You have to grade it. And somebody posted on the ad, I know how to restore old ranges. This is going to be a perfect project. So I said, okay. They came by, picked it up for $100. I can tell you for sure, this reseller was a fool. I loaded this into a white Lexus with beige interior. I can't believe this lady actually wanted to try reselling this range because it basically ruined her car just loading it in. Even though we lined everything with cardboard and paper before putting the range in, I'm 100% positive she has no idea how to list this, no idea how to test it, no idea how to grade it. But just because it's a Wolf appliance, she maybe wanted one or saw it on TV, on HGTV, and she thought, wow, this is my chance to get a Wolf appliance for $100. So if I was trying to sell this Wolf range for $500, $1,000, $1,500, I would have had to test it, I would have had to clean it, I would have to go through all the process of producing a really good experience. Now, I had a million questions when I posted it for $100, which was like, what's wrong with it? Was it stolen? People are going to wonder based on what you price it on. So it depends on who's the fool. Sometimes as the seller, you might be the fool. Sometimes as the buyer, are you buying from a seller who was a fool? This is really important because maybe this person thought I'm the fool for selling it for only $100. It's really important to understand the different price points you sell things at and how that reacts or how that influences the sale price. You might be a fool if you don't know enough about the market, and this might be you're too lazy to look it up in the eBay solds. But from my experience, really, really good resellers already know the price in the market for items when they're going out to look for it. They can tell immediately if it's going to be profitable or not. And if it's not obvious to you, maybe just leave it there. So in chess, I used to play a lot of chess growing up. My chess coach used to say that a lot of people struggle with getting to the next level at chess because they just look at the first good move and take it. So he taught me the opposite. When you see a good move, don't immediately take it. Look for a better move. So you should always be looking for that when you're a reseller. My recommendation is to have a budget. So if you have a budget of, let's say, $200 per week for sourcing, it'll make it easier for you to pass on an item that's questionable and look for an obvious win. So find something that's worth $50 for $10. That's obvious. You can tell it's worth more than 10, you buy it. If you're buying it for 10 and you're not really sure if it's worth it, just leave it there. You might be a fool if you buy a bunch of items with good intentions to resell it, but then you don't actually have a system to get them listed. So for me personally, I really rely on a strict schedule to get my items up for sale, because without that strict schedule, if I'm just casually listing whenever I feel like it, then I end up just making casual income whenever the platforms feel like it. And I want predictable income. That's why I produce a schedule that I adhere to every single week, because it just makes it easier. So a lot of people have great intentions. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, but you really need an actual system if you're going to resell. You might be a fool if you say that you really want to sell an item, but you're not doing all the things that make it easier for you to sell the item. This would be like an accurate, clean title. This would be like taking as many great photos as you can, the most item specifics you can, the best description you can, best grading and testing you can, best price you can afford, best returns you can afford. If you're not doing all those things, then you're really not that motivated to sell items. So you just need to make sure that you're not in denial. Don't say that you really want to sell the item, but then you don't have best offers. Don't say that you really want to sell the item, but you're priced above the market. Don't say that you really want to sell the item, but you only have one picture. So it has to match. If you really want to sell the item, you have to do everything. I think that people are confusing really want to sell it with lack of effort. So if you really, really want to sell the item, you have to do everything in your power to sell it. All right, guys, bonus tip. You might be a fool instead of a reseller if you see these crazy finds on Instagram, somebody finding Gucci for $1, and you think that's the reality of reselling. It's honestly not. Reselling is a bit of a grind. It's between $10 and $30 plus shipping is 99% of reselling. So if you see those Instagram posts and you feel like I should be getting these crazy designer luxury items for really, really cheap, flipping them for huge amounts of profit and not doing very much work, then you are definitely the fool. So if you guys need more help, you need more hand-holding, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/theresellerspodcast. There's over 2,000 people in there that are full-time resellers and choose to do this as their profession. So for $35 a month, you can actually talk to people who are actually doing this and be able to figure out tips and tricks and how to build your exact schedule and framework and sourcing habits to actually reach these goals. So I appreciate you guys. Until next time, make progress daily.